Hi, my name is Amber, and this is my psych developmental final. I decided to do a personal reflection about four major parts of my life that have contributed throughout my lifespan to get me to where I am today. Now, I grew up a little bit everywhere, doing a little bit of everything in different homes and foster care. I went through different abuse scenarios. I was in about 10 different foster homes in 2 years, and then was adopted when I was about to turn 9. I did struggle in infancy and early childhood, adolescence, and then I'm going to reflect on my middle childhood years. Now, I brought up here that my middle childhood, early childhood was with obesity and self-esteem issues, and my adolescence was struggling with some sexuality issues. And then my early and middle adulthood is when I finally found love and was able to solidify my sexual orientation and come out. First, I'm going to talk about my attachment style. My attachment style, unfortunately, due to my background, is that of a disorganized attachment. I do have inconsistent bonds with my caregivers and inconsistent placement in my homes. And while reading the book, and my whole life, I have been kind of branded as a survivor. However, I always felt I was something different of that there was something more of me that I needed to be, that it hadn't affected me. While reading this and being able to reflect at just how much my attachment in my early infancy, has affected every part of my life, including how I choose to parent, or the ways that I have struggles in parenting and emotional regulations in my relationships today. Now, I did also talk about how parenting is a big part of my attachment style. I did become a step parent about 10 years ago at the start of my relationship, and that did really expose the way that I did struggle with my emotion regulation in relation to my attachment style, and how that was coming out in the reactivity to my child. And that is something I have had to learn and actively work on by working on my attachment style, thus correcting that emotional regulation problems that I struggle with. Now, my early childhood, food insecurity and obesity were big struggles for me. With food, we didn't always have everything that we needed as children before we were taken by CPS. So I did end up hoarding food a lot, overeating a lot while in foster care. I was actually kicked out of homes due to hoarding food. There was a time in which, I fed my brother and sisters the powder, mac and cheese powder from the box to survive. So food insecurity did lead to overeating, and then, obesity, which did lead to me being bullied, me gaining weight, me leading to going to a point where I did have low self-esteem. I had no, feeling of value other than my body as, obese, and, not being attractive, and, being bullied and not socially coming out of that shell. Now, due to, the body issues that I struggled with, I did struggle with my sexuality in adolescence. I didn't really experiment with my sexuality, and, didn't come out as a lesbian until later in life. However, because I was so uncomfortable in my own skin, and things were so inconsistent for me, and my relationships were so inconsistent, coming out in my sexuality was a sore and hard topic for me growing up and through my developmental phases. I did have a lot of unhealthy and unstable relationships in early adulthood while I, found who I was, which does model not only to my attachment, issues that I struggle with, but also to the emotion regulation issues that I have. and then, struggling with my own sexual orientation in order to fully explore that. And once I did, I was able to find a long-term, relationship with a woman, raising our child together now for a long-term and stable 10 years after I did come out as being lesbian. Now, middle adulthood has been a lot about looking back, and that's been around the same time as, me coming out and finding love, which normally is at a different time, and developmental time for other people. I did always kind of consider myself a late bloomer in a lot of ways, so I guess this is an example of that. Now I do strive a lot of change through my, parenting. I am learning through parenting what it was as a child that, I did, lack or didn't even ever really learn, and that trust and consistency, and providing that love environment is not all about reacting in the moment to that emotional need to control and understand that moment, or find if I need to trust it. Now, this is also looking back, me through my weight loss journey, through my attachment, disorders, as well as being able to have a loving and attached parenting relationship with my daughter. Now, in conclusion, I did review my early attachment and infancy food insecurity, as well as obesity leading to self-esteem issues and sexual orientation issues, in my adolescence years leading into an early adulthood of, coming out, finding love, and then being able to look back and reflect through my parenting and who I want to be as a mom and as a person. I do consider myself a very resilient person. My development through my years, I am a survivor, although I hate to be branded it. I do have that resilience that we learned a lot about through the course.